Good morning to everyone. I would like to begin by congratulating the organizers. Congratulations indeed for the contents of this symposium. Congratulations for the structure. I think that these four headings are a very good idea indeed, because it allows all of us to contribute our ideas and to actually undertake complementary efforts so as to ensure that what we do in our landscapes and territories be really what we are aiming at achieving. And I would like to say also that the place where we are meeting is a wonderful spot indeed. And yesterday, most of us, I think, were fascinated by visiting the Atapuerca Museum. We saw how that visit also brings on board the different elements of this meeting, because what we saw was evolution, millions and millions of years, and human presence is there, was there, and will continue to be there. And we have to continue to do our utmost to conserve these landscapes, to manage them as best as possible. I don't think that we should think about our heritage, our forests, without remembering the importance of mankind. We need to do our utmost, as I said before, to guarantee our social presence. And when we avail ourselves of these terms in international and national scenes, when we talk about sustainability and so on, we need to really prioritize and think about sustainability in social terms. In other words, guarantee conditions which will ensure that our societies, our people, our men, our women who've been there, who have cohabitated with the forests, may so continue to do. And it's important, therefore, that our forests have the wherewithal, the economic resources that will guarantee their survival, which in turn, and at the end of the day, will allow us to really defend the environment, which is our mandate and our responsibility. And now let me very, very briefly explain to you what the European Union is doing to improve forest governance. I'll just give a little bit of background information regarding legislation being developed in the European Union. It is true that countries all over the world, most countries in the world, have actually got forestry programs. They all look to international agreements. The United Nations, of course, has been there spearheading the programs. And at the end of the day, the result is legislative actions that are on the track of fostering the best possible forest management alternative. But there are weak points, there are threats, there are hurdles to overcome, and I think that all of us should join forces in order to overcome the hurdles. In Europe at this point in time, as I said, a number of different initiatives of a legislative nature have been launched as of 2003, and they have been fleshed out more recently in two sets of rules. I think both of them aim at slowing down the illegal actions that have to do with logging activities, illegal logging activities, because this results in conflict in countries in which, unfortunately, this continues to happen. So as I said just a few seconds ago, forestry is subject to regulation, and it has been the case for over 150 years. We have therefore in place in Europe a system in place which aims at supervising, monitoring, and ensuring the compliance with forestry legislation. We know that we import between 10 and 15% of the woods that we use. This is the wood that is in circulation in the European Union. So we don't really have 100% control of the market of the wood, which is available in our market. And this encouraged us to think about demand in order to guarantee that forestry legislation is in fact being complied with in toto. As you know, illegal logging activities are a fact of life, And we know that there are a series of disadvantages, there's problems. Obviously, one of them is deforestation in global terms, also a loss of biological diversity in terms of plant life and animal life, flora and fauna, and also states, I think, are losing, if you will, control regarding their territory. Income is lost, which is essential for the economic development of the country in question. We see the appearance of mafias, of organized criminal associations, which are very powerful and very well organized and very difficult to control. And this, of course, has a triple effect of corruption. And, of course, then there's money laundering together with other criminal activities. And in some countries in conflict, we know that this money is going to finance war material. The background now. Background to these new legislative activities as undertaken by the European. Well, we see that this was back in the year 2003, a communication which proposed a series of actions to be undertaken to avoid illegal trade. This is in 2003, and I say Parliament and the Council gave it its approval, and it resulted in its being fleshed out, and the Commission then began to draft the rules. And the end result was an agreement reached. A draft, of course, was prepared, it was discussed, it was negotiated, it was given the go-ahead, and there we have, in the year 2005, rules in place regarding FLEGT licenses. This then has been further developed, and in the year 2008, we see that the end result is that this FLEGT system, which I will provide some data on in upcoming minutes, is based on voluntary association to the FLEGT system. It is still taking its first steps, and therefore a goodly portion of the wood coming into the European Union is outside of the FLEGT system, and we therefore came to understand that new rules were necessary, which actually call for due diligence activities in order to guarantee that wood accessing the European Union market is fully traceable. So the FLEGT action plan, as I say, we're back in the year 2005. This is when this is approved. What is the aim? What are the objectives sought? Well, first and foremost, to assist loggers in originating countries to install traceability systems. It's based on voluntary cooperation agreements among producers, and I would just remind you that there are 4 African countries that have signed this FLEGT agreement, and 6 African and Asian countries are currently negotiating signing the FLEGT agreement. 3 African countries and 3 Asian countries. This is a system which calls for special permits or licenses being issued in order to allow for the sales of wood from these countries. There is a policy in place for green acquisitions, fostering initiatives undertaken by the private sector, leveraging on what already exists. Obviously, it has financial objectives in mind, as I said, money laundering issues, and then also there's a huge market there for import insurance. So there's a lot of money involved. As I said, there are additional options which cover the gaps, and this is important because the FLEGT had to be fleshed out in the due diligence rule. Due diligence then was given the go-ahead in 2010. It's been approved and fully fostered by the government of Spain. At that point, Spain was presiding the European Union. So we're frankly very happy with having achieved this objective during our 6 months presidency. As I say, it's applicable to all wood products and byproducts which are sold for the first time in the community, products produced within the European Union, products imported into the European Union. So we're talking about pulp and paper, and it excludes recycled wood matter. What are the stakeholders mandated to do? Well, the first-time sellers in Europe, well, you would need to have that license. For local or national production, it would be the owner or the reseller, and for external production, it would be the importer. These stakeholders who buy or sell wood need to identify in the entire value chain the agents or tradesmen to have supplied the wood product or byproducts, and if appropriate, those who have supplied wood and wood byproducts. And here we would, of course, include FLECT and FITS. Legislation in place is the one that is in place in the country in question. The rights to leveraging wood within those limits as published officially with their corresponding taxes and tariffs. The aim is to leverage the production of wood, and there are third-party rights to take into account. These third-party rights regarding the use and possession, and of course this will include trade insofar as forestry activities are involved. As you can see, the system that we call due diligence calls for information, a risk management procedure. We can talk about different types of legislation. Non-compliance is high risk of some types of legislation, and this would call for an audit and control procedure being launched. The wood in question, in this case, would not be saleable. In principle, if this requisite is not complied with, the wood will not be sold in the market. Products as affected by due diligence: chip, logs, profiles, fiber, particle, packaging, floors, crossboards, cellulose, and furniture. The functioning of the rules in place, I would remind you that due diligence, which as I said before, dates from 2010, specifies that member states of the European Union have to transpose this European legislation into our national legislation. In the case of Spain, that would be by means of a Real Decreto or royal decree, which specifies who the national competent authority is in the arena of due diligence. And of course, here we're referring specifically to FLECT systems. Before June 13 this year, 2011, we are mandated to have designated the competent authority, which means that we should be, at this point, approving this national regulatory framework. As I said, this competent authority then has to monitor the operator who is availing himself of the due diligence system, and it can be done directly or by means of a supervisory entity, and here there would be control and tracking, which will keep a list, a national list, and at the end of the day, an EU list of supervisory entities or authorities, which all will be subject to control measures so as to ensure that the operator can avail himself of this alternative. How does this rule actually work? Well, it's broken into 3 separate headings. You have information, risk assessment, and risk minimization. So you need to provide basic information for all operations. You need to track the risk levels of each operation, and this means that we will need to allocate a specific degree of risk to each operation. And when we talk about minimizing risk, in the case of high risk, more information is requested in order to be able to take the final decision regarding whether selling is feasible or not. The rules, well, in principle, measures and procedures that will facilitate access to the following information are called for: the country of origin, the product, the volume, the weight, the operator, and compliance with applicable legislation. Supervisory entities are as follows. The operator can have his proprietary system or participate in a supervisory entity system, and these entities can request a recognition as supervisory entities if the following requisites are complied with: having a legal nature, being legally established in the European Union, having appropriate degrees of experience, being qualified to undertake those functions as mentioned in headings 1 and 2, and non-existence of conflict. So that is where we stand right now. This is where we stand regarding this initiative, and this, of course, with the aim of combating illegal wood sale. This rule of due diligence is to be implemented as of March 2013. As I said before, member states have to specify who our competent national authorities are. The European Commission is authorized by the rules in place to approve delegate actions acknowledging these supervisory entities, and on the basis of the list of products which are subject to the rules. And also, apart from adopting these executive rules, and this in regard to due diligence and assessment of supervisory entities, I think that I have abided by the time allocated to me, and I would just like to thank you very much for your attention.